Have you ever stopped to wonder why the wireless technology connecting your headphones, your speaker, and your phone is called Bluetooth? Not Blue Wire, not Radio Link, not Wireless Wave, but Bluetooth. It is a strange combination of words when you think about it. There is nothing in your earbuds that is blue. There is nothing resembling a tooth anywhere near your phone. So where did this name actually come from, and why did it stick around for decades while the technology itself has changed so much? In this episode, we are digging into the story behind that odd little word, right here on the lost history of everyday things. Bluetooth is the name given to a short-range wireless technology that lets devices talk to each other without any cables. It was developed in the 1990s, and today, it connects almost everything around us, from headphones and smartwatches to car stereos and computer mice. But before we get into how it works, let's talk about something far more interesting, which is the name itself. Because honestly, Bluetooth is an odd name for a piece of technology. It does not describe what the product does, it does not hint at wireless signals, and it gives almost no clue about radios or connections of any kind. Most technology names try to tell you something about their function. Wi-Fi, for example, sounds like it has something to do with wireless. Bluetooth tells you nothing like that at all. To understand why such an unusual name was chosen, we have to go back over 1,000 years, long before computers or phones even existed. The story begins with a real historical figure named Harald Gormson, who ruled as King of Denmark and parts of Norway during the 10th century. Harald carried a nickname that has survived in historical texts, and that nickname was Bluetooth. Historians still debate exactly why he was called this. One popular theory suggests that Harald had a damaged or decayed tooth that appeared dark, almost blue or gray in color, and people began referring to him by that distinctive feature. Another theory, often repeated online, claims he loved eating blueberries so often that his teeth were stained. Though most historians consider this idea to be more of a fun myth than a confirmed fact, whatever the true reason, the nickname stuck, and King Harald Bluetooth became known throughout history for one major achievement. He united separate, warring Danish tribes into a single unified kingdom, bringing together different groups under one banner. Harald did not just rule quietly either. According to old sagas and historical chronicles, he converted Denmark to Christianity, built fortresses, and worked to bring scattered regions under a single crown, at a time when constant feuding between local chieftains was common. He is remembered as one of the figures who helped shape Denmark into something closer to a modern nation, rather than a patchwork of competing territories. This idea of bringing fractured groups together turned out to be the exact detail that mattered 1,000 years later, even though almost nothing else about his reign has anything to do with electronics, radios, or modern communication. So why would anyone name wireless technology after a Viking king from 1,000 years ago? The answer comes from a meeting that took place in the late 1990s. Several major technology companies, including Ericsson, Nokia, Intel, and IBM, were working on a way to create a single wireless standard that could let different devices and brands communicate with one another, no matter who made them. At the time, there were competing wireless technologies being developed separately, and engineers wanted one universal system that everyone could use together. During discussions about this shared project, an engineer at Intel named Jim Kardach was looking for a temporary code name for the technology while the official branding was still being decided. As the story goes, Kardach had been reading a historical novel about Vikings, which included the story of King Harald Bluetooth and how he united separate Danish tribes into one kingdom.
Kardach thought this was a fitting comparison. Just as Harald had brought rival groups together under one ruler, this new wireless standard was meant to unite competing companies and devices under one shared technology. So, he suggested the placeholder name Bluetooth, almost as a joke or an inside reference among engineers, with the plan to replace it later with something more polished and professional sounding for the public release. Funny enough, that backup name was never needed. As the project moved forward, the codename Bluetooth became so familiar among the engineers and partner companies that it simply stayed in use. By the time the technology was ready to be introduced publicly in the late 1990s, Bluetooth had already become the name everyone associated with the project, and there was no strong reason to change it. A group of companies came together to officially promote and manage the new standard, and they kept the Viking-inspired name as the official brand. What started as a placeholder ended up becoming permanent, which is honestly a pretty unusual way for a major piece of modern technology to get its name. The Viking connection does not stop at the name either. Even the Bluetooth logo carries a hidden reference to King Harold. If you look closely at the Bluetooth symbol, it is not just a random shape. It is actually made by combining two ancient runic letters from the Younger Futhark alphabet, an old writing system used by Norse and Germanic peoples. The two runes combined are Hagal and Bjarken, and together they represent the initials H and B, standing for Harold Bluetooth. So every single time you glance at that little blue Bluetooth icon on your phone or headphones, you are actually looking at a piece of ancient Scandinavian writing, hidden inside a thoroughly modern symbol. Most people using Bluetooth every day have absolutely no idea that the logo is secretly a king's initials written in a 1,000-year-old alphabet. It also helps to understand a little about how the actual technology works, since that makes the disconnect between the name and the function even more obvious. Bluetooth operates by sending small amounts of data over short distances using radio waves in a specific frequency band, generally good for connecting devices that are within 33 feet, or 10.6 meters, or less of each other. It uses a method sometimes called frequency hopping, which means the signal quickly jumps between many different channels many times per second to avoid interference from other wireless devices nearby. This is part of why Bluetooth headphones and speakers tend to work reliably even in rooms full of other electronics. None of this, the radio waves, the frequency hopping, the short-range pairing, has anything to do with the color blue or with teeth of any kind. It is purely a coincidence of branding, built entirely around a historical metaphor rather than a technical description. This is where the name starts to feel even stranger once you understand it. The name does not seem to have any direct correlation to the function of the technology at all. Bluetooth does not transmit anything blue, and it has nothing to do with teeth, dental health, or even color in general. It is purely a historical reference, chosen because of a metaphor about uniting different groups, rather than because of anything related to radios, signals, or wireless communication. If you handed someone the word Bluetooth without any context and asked them to guess what it does, it is extremely unlikely that wireless device pairing would be anywhere near their first guess. Compare this to other tech names from the same era. Many wireless and computer-related products were named with descriptive words, acronyms, or scientific terms that at least gave a small hint about their purpose. Bluetooth completely skips that approach and instead borrows its identity from medieval European history. Think about names like Ethernet, which references the old scientific idea of ether as a medium for transmission, or infrared, which directly tells you it uses infrared light. Wi-Fi, even though it does not technically stand for anything official, still sounds close enough to wireless fidelity that people assume a connection. Bluetooth breaks that pattern entirely. There is no clever acronym hiding inside it, no scientific term being shortened, and no obvious wordplay pointing toward wireless signals. It is simply a king's nickname, repurposed for a completely unrelated industry, which makes it stand out as one of the more unusual choices in the history of consumer technology branding. And yet, despite having no real connection to what it actually does, Bluetooth turned out to be an incredibly easy name to remember. It is short, it has a pleasant rhythm when spoken, and it sounds friendly rather than overly technical or robotic. Many wireless standards from the same time period had long, complicated, or purely technical names that most regular people never bothered to learn or use in everyday conversation. Bluetooth, on the other hand, rolled easily off the tongue and became something people could say casually, almost like a nickname rather than a piece of technical jargon. So, even though the name does not seem to tell a person what it does, it somehow manages to be one of the most recognizable and memorable technology names in modern history. There is something almost ironic about that. A name with zero functional explanation managed to become more memorable than dozens of names that tried very hard to sound technical and descriptive. Thank you for watching. If you have suggestions for our next videos, please share them in the comments below. We'll be sure to give you an acknowledgement for your contribution. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the lost history of everyday things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories that surprise us with their origins and unique details.